With these can-do videos, you'll see real-life situations where you have to introduce yourself, talk about your family, or give your contact information. So, by the end, you can do them yourself in Japanese. This video is a small portion of our can-do course. To get the full course, including translations, grammar tools, and assessment tests, click the link in the description.
Welcome to Can Do Japanese by JapanesePod101.com.
皆さんこんにちは、加納かなです。Hi everyone, I'm Kana Kano. In this lesson, you learn how to talk about your occupation in Japanese.
This is Mark Lee, and he's on a plane to Japan. He asks the passenger sitting next to him, Ken Kobayashi, Mr. Kobayashi, are you a student?
小林さんは学生ですか?
Listen to the conversation and focus on Ken's response. Ready?
小林さんは学生ですか?
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
Once more with the English translation.
小林さんは学生ですか?
Mr. Kobayashi, are you a student?
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
Wondering how you can master these conversations even faster? Here's how. 1. Read along. You get the lesson conversation and translations inside our dialogue tool so that you see each word as you hear it and understand it all. 2. Practice speaking. By shadowing what you hear, you can also record and compare yourself with native speakers with our voice recording tools. And 3. Take our assessment tests and see how much you remember. These tools are part of our Can-Do course. Just click the link in the description to get them.
Let's take a closer look at the conversation.
Do you remember how Mark asks, Mr. Kobayashi, are you a student?
小林さんは学生ですか?
First is
小林さん、
Mr. Kobayashi.
小林さん、
This starts with Ken's family name,
小林、
Kobayashi.
小林、小林、
After this is
さん、
a polite suffix attached to a person's name. It translates as Mr. in Ken's case.
さん、さん、
Note, this suffix can be used with any gender. Together,
小林さん、
Mr. Kobayashi.
小林さん、
After this is the particle,
は、
the topic marking particle.
は、は、
It marks Mr. Kobayashi as the topic of the sentence. Think of it like as for in the expression as for Mr. Kobayashi. Together, it's
小林さんは、
as for Mr. Kobayashi.
小林さんは、
In Japanese, it's more common and polite to address a person by his or her name and polite suffix rather than directly with you. After this is
学生、
student.
学生、学生
Next is
です。
here, it's like the are in are you.
です。です。
Last is the particle,
か、
the question marking particle.
か、か。
This particle turns the sentence into a question. Altogether, it's
小林さんは学生ですか?
This literally means, as for Mr. Kobayashi, student, you are, but it translates as, Mr. Kobayashi, are you a student?
小林さんは学生ですか?
Let's take a closer look at the response.
Do you remember how Ken Kobayashi says, No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
First is
いいえ、
meaning no.
いいえ、いいえ、
It answers Mark's yes or no question, Are you a student?
学生ですか？
Next, Ken says,
学生ではありません。
I'm not a student.
学生ではありません。
First is
学生、
student.
学生
After this is
ではありません。
here, it's like the am not in I am not. It's a polite negative form of the linking verb.
ではありません。ではありません。
Note
ではありません。
comes from the linking verb
だ、
to be.
だ。
Altogether, it's
学生ではありません。
this literally means student I am not, but it translates as I'm not a student.
学生ではありません。
Note, the I is understood through context as Ken is responding to the question. Finally, Ken says,
投資家です。
I'm an investor.
投資家です。
First is
投資家、
investor.
投資家、投資家
After this is
です。
here, it's like the am in I am.
です。
Altogether, it's
投資家です。
this literally means investor I am, but it translates as I'm an investor.
投資家です。
Note, the I is understood through context. Altogether,
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
no, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
The pattern is
いいえ、occupation ではありません。actual occupation です。
no, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
いいえ、occupation ではありません。actual occupation です。
Imagine you're Emma Egawa, a student. Ken asks you if you're an investor. Say, no, I'm not an investor. I'm a student. Ready?
いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。
No, I'm not an investor. I'm a student.
いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。
Let's look at some examples. Listen and repeat, or speak along with the native speakers.
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。
いいえ、医者ではありません。エンジニアです。いいえ、医者ではありません。エンジニアです。
いいえ、看護師ではありません。医者です。いいえ、看護師ではありません。医者です。
いいえ、学生ではありません。教師です。いいえ、学生ではありません。教師です。
いいえ、バリスタです。 いいえ、バリスタです。
Did you notice how the last speaker omits part of the response?
Wondering how you can master these conversations even faster? Here's how. 1. Read along. You get the lesson conversation and translations inside our dialogue tool so that you see each word as you hear it and understand it all. 2. Practice speaking. By shadowing what you hear, you can also record and compare yourself with native speakers with our voice recording tools. And 3. Take our assessment tests and see how much you remember. These tools are part of our Can-Do course. Just click the link in the description to get them.
She says,
いいえ、バリスタです。
No, I'm a barista.
いいえ、バリスタです。
When directly responding to someone's question, it's often possible to omit part of the response. Here, by simply answering
いいえ、
no, there's no need to say,
学生ではありません。
I'm not a student. The pattern is,
いいえ、actual occupation です。
no, I'm actual occupation.
いいえ、actual occupation です。
You should be aware of this pattern, but for this lesson, we'll use the pattern
いいえ、occupation ではありません。actual occupation です。
no, I'm not occupation. I'm actual occupation.
いいえ、occupation ではありません。actual occupation です。
Let's review the key vocabulary.
教師、
Teacher. When a teacher is talking about his or her own occupation.
教師、教師、
Note.
先生、
Is also commonly used to mean teacher, but when you talk about your own occupation,
教師、
is commonly used.
エンジニア、
Engineer.
エンジニア、エンジニア。看護師、
Nurse.
看護師、看護師。医者、
Doctor.
医者、医者。バリスタ、
Barista.
バリスタ、バリスタ。Let's review. Respond to the prompts by speaking aloud. Then repeat after me, focusing on pronunciation. Ready? Do you remember how to say investor? 投資家、投資家。And how Ken says, I'm an investor. 投資家です。投資家です。Do you remember how to say student? 学生、学生。And how Ken says, I'm not a student. 学生ではありません。学生ではありません。Do you remember how to say no? いいえ、いいえ。Do you remember how Ken says, No, I'm not a student. I'm an investor.
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。
いいえ、学生ではありません。投資家です。Do you remember how Mark addresses Mr. Kobayashi? 小林さん、小林さん。Do you remember how to say the question mark in particle? かか And how Mark asks, Mr. Kobayashi, are you a student?
小林さんは学生ですか？
小林さんは学生ですか？ Do you remember how to say engineer? エンジニア、エンジニア。And how to say doctor? 医者、医者。Do you remember the word commonly used for teacher when talking about one's own occupation? 教師、教師。
Let's practice. Imagine you're Mark Lee and you're an engineer. Respond to Ken's question. Ready?
リーさんは医者ですか？
いいえ、医者ではありません。エンジニアです。
Listen again and repeat.
いいえ、医者ではありません。エンジニアです。いいえ、医者ではありません。エンジニアです。
Let's try another. Imagine you're Kana Kano and you're a teacher. Ready?
加納さんは学生ですか？
いいえ、学生ではありません。教師です。
Listen again and repeat.
いいえ、学生ではありません。教師です。いいえ、学生ではありません。教師です。
Let's try one more. Imagine you're Emma Egawa and you're a student. Ready?
江川さんは投資家ですか？
いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。
Listen again and repeat.
いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。いいえ、投資家ではありません。学生です。
This is the end of this lesson.
Now, here's what you can do to cement this conversation in your head. Review the conversation with our dialogue tool and lesson transcripts. Study the key words and phrases with our spaced repetition flashcards. Review the key grammar and cultural tips inside the lesson notes. And test yourself with our assessment tests. So click the link in the description right now and sign up for your free lifetime account to access our Can-Do course.
Well done! Now you know how to talk about your occupation in Japanese. That's all there is to it. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.